So yeah, I just got a new camera set up, so we're still trying to figure out like how this is all gonna work. But yeah, I'm really excited though because it has like a microphone connected to it, it has a whole ring light, and so that means the lighting and sound should be a lot better than my ones I was doing on my laptop. So once I figure out this whole low something connected something, I don't usually do them from my phone. I like to do them from my computer just because it's connected to the internet. Either way. So what I really wanted to talk about, all that aside, hopefully this is okay. And if it doesn't look good, I'll just re-record it because I actually did have something to talk about. Hold on. I even had notes because I really had something to talk about today. So anyway, right. I wanted to talk about passing the God test. And I know sometimes I've heard or I get mixed messages about that, and maybe this might be something you've never really heard. Like there's sometimes people say, yeah, God will test you, then they say, no, God doesn't test you. And then some people say God will test you, but he won't tempt you. And it gets kind of confusing. So first and foremost, yeah, God will give you tests from time to time. You can see that in Genesis 22, God tested Abraham. Abraham was praying for, a son. He really wanted a son or an heir, and God had promised him, that your seed would be as numerous as the stars or the grains of sand. Like you won't be able to count it. And so the big promise though was just the fact that at the time Abraham and Sarah, they were barren, they hadn't had any kids, they were really, really old, like 190 and something like that. And so then God blesses them a year later after that. I believe it was like a year or so. Don't quote me on the year, but basically God blesses them with a son, and the son is Isaac. Yeah, it was Isaac. And so then one day God basically told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. So he takes him up to the cliff to up this mountain to sacrifice him, right? And so but that was a test. God had already provided the provision, already provided the actual sacrifice for them once they got there. So that's where people say, oh, there was a ram in the bush. Literally, there was a ram in the bush that was used for the sacrifice in place of Isaac. But that was a test for Abraham. The test was this, and basically it was based around okay, does Abraham really trust God? Did he make Isaac into an idol? The thought or the desire to have a child, did he make that into an idol? Is he willing to, give up the thing that he truly loved and truly wanted in order to appease God and to obey God and to be in obedience? So that was a test. And the thing is, though, if you see something in the Old Testament, you just definitely want to confirm it with something in the New Testament. So in the New Testament, you have Jesus. Jesus was preaching and ministering with the disciples, and then it was late in the afternoon or something, and it was 5,000 people. This is the one, 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. They feed 5,000 men plus the women and the kids, so it's more than 5,000 people. They only counted 5,000 men, likely double that because you gotta count the women and the kids, right? And so the test, and literally the word they literally use, this is John 6:6, it literally says the word test. So Jesus tested them to see, and he tested them by asking, how can we get these people food? And so one of the disciples was doing the math, ain't no way, Jesus, we can't do this. And it was a test to just see that they honestly believed that Jesus was the Lord and Messiah and can do miracles, signs, and wonders and could provide provision. That was a test. And so God, one, does test people. And so that's just something you just know, that it is the Bible several times that God tests people. And so this happened to me yesterday. This is where I'm getting to, and how should we, how do we go about passing these tests? How do we handle these moments, right? So yesterday, I was getting a prescription, and this is a prescription, I only have one, and I get it not that often, but regularly enough. I know my insurance usually covers this. I never have to pay any money. I never have to pay anything out of pocket for this prescription, right? So I went to Walgreens, gave them my prescription, came back, was ready, and she was pulling up my information, and she was like, yeah, it says your benefits has been terminated. And she was talking about my insurance benefits. I'm just I don't see how. I don't understand. Because, I'm thinking I literally just used my insurance not that long ago because I just got glasses, right? So, clearly it was good. But you know how, I think around July, you can get, a new plan, or you can start, something happens in July, we can get new insurance. And I was like, well, maybe I didn't maybe I didn't fill out the right form. Even though I was thinking back, I was like, I never had to confirm that I wanted the same insurance. Usually you only have to do something if you want to change your insurance. That's when you got to fill out some type of paperwork, right? But I was like, never before have I had to redo my insurance. So I was like, or verify that I wanted to keep it. So I didn't understand that. And I was like, okay, it's fine. No big deal. I'll just call the insurance company after I leave out here. And the thing is, I never really had to pay for this prescription, so I honestly didn't know what it cost. I was like, okay, if it's more than $5, I won't buy it. I'll just call my insurance company, try to figure something out, or just go without it or whatever. Because I would have been okay. But I was like, if it's less than $5, I want any trip. I'll just pay it, and then I'll still call my insurance company because I want to make sure I'm insured out here. I ain't just out here, you know. But I was like, I'll just handle it afterwards. And she started ringing it up or whatever. And I don't know how much it originally cost, but she said, oh, I have this discount thing or whatever. And I was like, oh, praise the Lord, because I don't know what this prescription costs. And she got it down to like $4.67. And I was like, okay, I ain't gonna trip off $4 and some change. So I was like, I went ahead and paid for it. And then I left. And then when I went home, I called the insurance company, like, hey, they say my benefits are terminated. I'm trying to figure out, what's going on. So they look. It's like, hey, no, they're not. But this was for my medical insurance. But they was like, oh, but your pharmacy insurance is like through someone else. So they was like, on this end it's good, but it might be something with the pharmacy insurance. So I was like, okay, all right. And so they gave me a number, and then they transferred me over. And so that's my cool. I could have gotten really stressed out. I could have gotten really worried. And I said earlier that I could have gone without the prescription. Honestly, I probably couldn't have gone without that prescription. And so that, and having my medication when I needed it has been something I've kind of stressed over. I haven't always had access to it. And so that's something that has in the past caused me to worry a lot, to doubt a lot, to get really anxious, which then gets me even more sick than I would have been had I just been cool the whole time. And so I knew this was a point where it's just like, okay, Lonnie, whatever you do, it's going to work out. It's fine. Just don't get upset. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't get stressed out about it. Because, like, when I get stressed out, I start to break out. It gets really bad. It's not cool. I get sick from it. And so, like, in this moment, it's just, like, throughout this whole time, I'm talking to the person, trying to figure out what's going on. Like, no, we're just going to keep it cool. I'm just going to do, answer the questions, whatever. And then turns out, get to the pharmacy people. And they was like, hey, yeah, your insurance is here. There's no issues. And basically make the long story, which has already been a long story, a little bit shorter, they called Walgreens. I don't know what happened. I don't know what was wrong. And this is how I know it was a test, because literally my insurance was fine. And there was no reason for there to have been this issue where they thought that my insurance was terminated. And it was crazy because even when I was in the store, I had them check, like, oh, wait, here's my insurance card. And they was like, yep, this is the one we have on file. And so this is how I know for a fact that it was a test, because literally, there was nothing wrong. Everything was cool. Everything got resolved. And so what ended up happening, just to give you the end of the story, was that they had me go back and I got a refund for the prescription that I paid for. But, like, when I recognized it was test, because there was never a point where God wasn't there, where God didn't already have provision, where God didn't have made it where I couldn't get out. There was always a way out. There was always, like, there was never a point where I was uncovered. My insurance was there the entire time. There was no point where I didn't have insurance. And then also God was looking out on the fact that even when I was in the first part of it, paying for the prescription myself, like, the lady was like, here's a discount code. Here's to make it cheaper. Here's to, like, alleviate some stress that you might be feeling, or the stress on your pockets, or whichever. So, like, first and foremost, it's God testing you, because he's in it, and he's there, and he has his hand still on you. And he's not just leaving you out there. Like, there's provision. There is his safety. I was still in the safety of God. I wasn't just out here just struggling and one thing after another. Like, if you guys read Job, it was literally one thing after another things happened. Like, that's a whole, like, you could probably say Job was tested too, because, well, I won't say he was tested, but God allowed it. God allowed the enemy to wreak havoc over his life. That's a completely different situation, like, to a point where Job was really trying to figure out, did God, like, leave him, But in this case, even in the worst of it, which, I mean, it wasn't that horrible of a situation. It could have been a lot worse. I think it wasn't that horrible because I didn't react, and I didn't allow myself to react. But anyways, that even when it was like, okay, I'm just going to have to suck it up and pay for this prescription, like, God was still there. God still provided. God still gave provision. So it's like really awesome. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things and talk about how, like, if you're in the test, how to pass it, how to get beyond that point, and actually pass the test. Because the thing is, if you don't pass it, that means you're going to go through it again. And you keep going through this thing until you pass that test. So you don't want to be in this weird cycle of going through experiencing the same type of stuff and always failing. So you want to pass it, you want to pass it on the first time. And here's how. So, and it's really about how you respond. In that situation, I could have got, a nasty attitude with the people at Walgreens. I could have got a nasty attitude with the people on the insurance company. I could have been mad at everyone. I could have been mad at myself for not, paying more attention to my mail, because it could have been something in the mail that I didn't do. But instead, I just kept it cool. And like the thing is, it says in the Bible to be joyful. If you look at James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, and then Peter 4, 12 through 19, they're talking about how to handle these type of situations. And the whole thing is like to be joyful when you're in tough situations. Even when you're in trials and tribulation, still keep the joy of the Lord, because that means that you understand that God is always with you, and God is with you. There's no reason for you not to have that joy. And so just keeping in mind with that whole be joyful, like be in charge of your emotions. Don't allow your emotions to go crazy, right? Don't allow yourself to get to the point where you're just like overwhelmed or stressed, or you're acting out in a way that wouldn't represent God. I think that's one of the key points, to make sure that how you respond is how God would want you to respond, basically. The next one was just be steadfast and know how God will want you to respond. Don't deviate, which I kind of talked about, but the verse I had for that one was James 1 and 12, and like it tells you to be steadfast. So like that means being consistent. That means allowing that your response to be the same no matter the situation, no matter who comes at you. Like even if they're like yelling or being really mean to you or whatever. Let your response be the same. Like you can't change how anybody responds. You can't control that. You have no say in that, what other people do. But you have responsibility over yourself, and you can control yourself. So like even if it's a road rage situation, like you don't have to stoop to that other person's level. One thing I've been trying to remind myself is that no matter how other people treat me, I will remain the same. So if they treat me well, if they're not treating me well, whatever, I'm not going to deviate from who I am and how I want to operate just because of what the other person has done. And so that's been something that helps me to remember, just be steadfast and be consistent, like across the board. This is how I respond. This is the standard I've set for myself. So I'm not going to stoop down to any level. I'm not going to be nasty or evil or anything like that, because this is my standard. So just being steadfast in that. Proverbs 3 and 26, just talking about relying on God. And then in Philippians 4, 6, and 7, just talking about, like, if you're in one of those situations, just pray and thank God. So, like, throughout it, I was, talking to God, like, okay, God, I don't know what's really going on. What's my next move? Like, pray. Like, if you're in a trial, because the thing is, this is a test for you, and, like, something happens, and you're trying to figure out how to maneuver it. You can ask God. You can ask him what to do. It's better to ask him and trust on him and lean on him and his understanding and his wisdom, and allow him to guide you. Like, that's the ultimate level, not doing it through yourself, but being able to do it through using God, And so I think that just takes you to a whole nother level, a whole nother place. And then throughout, just thank God. Like, tell him how grateful you are. Like, even with me praying for the prescription, it was less than I had to pay. So I was thankful. I thank God for that I didn't even have to pay that much from the jump. And then when I got a refund, I was like, I was really thanking God, because like, hey, that's $5. That's a meal, I guess. That's a $5 box somewhere, And so it's just reminding yourself, like, those small things. Mostly just keeping your cool. So I just want to encourage you guys, like, if you find yourself in a test and you know it's a test, because no matter how bad it may seem, you still can recognize that God is around you and God is near you. It's probably a test, and it's probably something God has been working in you or working on in you. Usually that's how that happens. Like, you've been dealing with a certain thing, or you've been reading more about it, or you've been praying about it. But at some point, you have to prove it to yourself that you've overcame whatever it is you felt like you need to overcome, or you've learned whatever it is you felt like you need to learn. That's when the test comes. And so when you find yourself in those situations, keep it cool. Respond how you know God will want you to respond. And then just make sure that you're being a good representative of God and who he is. How you respond to give him glory. So yeah, I'm about to struggle to turn this off because I literally have to take my phone out. But I hope you guys have a great day. And hopefully next time I'll get a better... I guess with practice, this switch off will be a lot easier. But this one might be a little rough, so don't judge me. But I hope you guys have a great time. Bye.